Welcome to the Advisor Insight series, where we connect with leading global executives, entrepreneurs, chairs and advisors. I want you to have an unfiltered view from the experts in the field. These are leaders, creators, innovators and disruptors. I hope you enjoy this interview. Welcome to the Advisor Insight series. My name is Louise Broekman. I'm the founder and CEO of the Advisory Board Centre. I'm here with Roger Phare today, who's a certified chair and very experienced in advisory boards. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you, Louise. Good to be here.
Right. And Roger, I'm very interested to start with to find out a bit about your experience around advisory boards.
Yes, well, I've spent a long career in IT and particularly sales and marketing focused organisations. Did a stint in the UK with a major organisation, came back to just over 2 years ago now, and decided I wanted to move more into the portfolio rather than professional background, I guess. And by accident a little bit came across the Advisory Board Centre, which at that time I think it's fair to say was still somewhat embryonic, but I think it's a great organisation and has really sort of built my professional or portfolio career in the last 2 years around a lot of those principles in the organisation itself.
That's great. So you've been involved now in several advisory boards. What's the impact that you've seen the advisory boards have had actually on the organisations that you're supporting?
Yes, well, it provides a good deal of flexibility, particularly, and if we look at the advisory board charters are all about, it's there obviously to be, the problem-solving boards, and particularly, dare I say it, the CEO's best friend, or not necessarily friend, but the shoulder to lean on, which I think everybody acknowledges the traditional governance boards, don't really provide that based upon being decision-making boards and, somewhat arm's length. So have seen significant, obviously change and obviously improvements with all the organisations I've worked around, and just understanding how the particularly growing organisations cope with that growth and the organisational structures they need to go through.
It's interesting. I've been doing the research on the new State of the Market report that will be released this year, and the impact of advisory boards that are in the measurement of the business growth score. And the two key areas is around business confidence and revenue and growth inside the business. Have you seen specific areas of impact on the advisory boards that you've seen actually on the owner themselves?
Yes, well, each one's different, dare I say it, and it is the coming back to the problem solving, and solution finding aspect of things. And with the advisory boards I've been involved in, a number of them are stable organisations and growing and looking at different growth opportunities, and certainly rectify that, right through to organisations that have got some dramas, dare I say it, within basic governance, shareholding, ownership type issues which we work through. So it's certainly varied. The major thing is to focus on the job at hand, and particularly the charter of the advisory board itself.
Roger, we had the opportunity to work together on a presentation late last year around the growth of theme-based advisory board meetings. Do you want to give me some insight around that, or what's worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, the very nature of the advisory board structure is that, as we say, it's there to work through problems and obviously find solutions, which is difficult to do under a traditionalist type board structure, whereby an agenda might come out and a little bit tongue-in-cheek, the items on a 3-hour agenda might be everything from how do we do double-digit sales growth, how do we We've got an acquisition opportunity. We've got one of the shareholders who wishes to exit the company, and we also need to do a total organisation restructure, and that should cover a couple of hours. And we also need to leave time for general business. It tends to be a rush around the houses, if you like, based upon that. And what often happens is either there's a deep dive into one of those topics, and therefore every other topic doesn't, get addressed, and a little bit, dare I say it, as a talk fest. Or alternatively, it's a rush around the houses, as I said, and we go skim across the top and agree to revisit it next board meeting. So the theme-based advisory board, I think we use the poor analogy maybe, of the hamburger. The meat in the middle, if you like, is the theme of the day. But let's leave room around the buns around the outside to do the other stuff, which is, the other items at hand, maybe urgent items, plus, follow-ups from previous that. And I've been experienced in, or had experience with some of the boards I'm on, where that's working very well, to say that, it allows a good period of focus on the particular. Doesn't mean it's the only time it gets addressed. It may be, revisited again into between 2 and 6 months, but it's starting to gain traction in that area.
It's a great way to keep the energy going with a group of people. Your advisory board might be 18 months, maybe 3 years of working together to keep that energy going within the group.
Sure, and it also allows, the concept of advisory boards, where you've got project-based advisory boards, or the term I like, the pop-up advisory board type approach. You can start to integrate that in a way by having the thing, because the challenge that pop-up or project-based advisory boards is that they suddenly become parallel universes, and maybe the two parties are not involved, which can form a divide and conquer type thing, not deliberately. But this way you can invite subject matter experts, obviously from external, other advisors, or as importantly, key members of staff from the organisation. If it's an organisational restructure you need to do, it could be head of HR, head of manufacturing, etc. If it's something to do with an acquisition, then an external advisor who's experienced in M&A could well join the party.
Yeah, and it kind of breaks the thinking that an advisory board is a set structure. Advisory boards are inherently flexible, aren't they? And so we've got to harness that opportunity. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, very, very true. It is a framework. Yeah, for sure.
Freedom in a framework, Roger. Yeah. I'm very interested in your top 3 tips, Roger. What are your top 3 tips? Firstly, for businesses that are looking potentially at having an advisory board.
Yeah, the top 3. I think the first is that understand what it is you want. Heard so many stories of saying, look, I set up an advisory board some time ago and it didn't work because I got a few people together who knew something, or I knew them, and we got together and we had a chat about various things, and in the end of the day I didn't agree with some of the stuff I said, and I found I was doing all the work anyway. So it disbanded, and I hear that story so often. So it's really understanding what it is you want, and that comes back to another good piece of material the advisory board has, which is the advisory board charter. And rather than that being a document which everybody just hurriedly signs and puts in the bottom drawer and it's some of that is in self-evident, but the part which said were the objectives and goals and what we expect to see out of that's important. So that's the first area. The second area I would say is to undertake the fact that it still needs to be structured. Whilst we talk about being flexible, talk about framework, the advisory board should still be structured. It should still have minutes to what was talked about last time. It should have time frames, and therefore that's the role of the chair to make sure they're doing their job correctly. And the third thing, and I think this is probably common with both advisory boards and governance boards, is the biggest area of frustration is an agreed set of actions happens out of the Ming, and even, you know, it's not decisions in an advisory board case, but it could be actions that, and lo and behold, the next advisory board comes up into, you know, 2-3 months, and oh no, we haven't actually done any of that, we haven't even looked at it, you know, to say, well, why, you know, what we've in fact done is every 2 months we're going to have a talk fest, you know. So whilst actions don't need to be, you know, by who, by when, and has that person done it, and report every, you know, that sort of thing, if at least addressing the issues that have been and what are the outcomes from that, that would be the third thing.
Yeah, good. And 3 tips for advisors?
Yeah, the first is be patient. I you know, attend a lot of the forums, and people have joined the advisory board and they're moving into a professional career portfolio career from perhaps a professional career otherwise, and then 2 months later says, oh, this is hopeless, I haven't got any haven't been invited on any advisory boards I've employed or I've tried. Yeah, probably takes 2 years to build a reasonable portfolio, I'd say. Louise, you'd be more experienced than I at this one, but that would be my feel before you get real traction. So being patient is the first thing. The second one is to be flexible, you know, because every problem you're going to solve, you know, it's listening rather than telling so much, that sort of things. And also probably, and particularly if you're moving into the role as a chair, understand where you know, you use the resource network that we have within the advisory board or other networks you have to call in expertise when you need it, because yes, everybody believes they know a little bit about all the topics, but if it's a particular, for instance, you know, there's 1 or 2 people I work with, particularly in the M&A space, and these people do this day in, day out. You know, I'm aware of it. You know, I've been involved in a lot of it, but these are the people you want to be able to do that. Might be in the legal space, it may be organizational restructure, it might be whatever, but use the resources available as well.
It's good counsel, and I guess that's why for the Advisory Board Centre itself, the diversity of our community is so important, because you're right, we all have limits. We need to understand the ethical boundaries of where we should be providing advice and when we shouldn't be.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Roger, thank you so much for not only sharing your insights, but also the good work that you're doing out there in making a difference. So thank you for sharing your insights today.
Pleasure, Louise.
Okay, bye for now.
Thanks. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to share it with your networks and follow the Advisory Board Centre for more valuable insights. The Advisory Board Centre is the global body for advisory professionals. We provide best practice, training, certification and connection to support the professionalism, growth and impact of the advisory sector for professionals and the organisations they serve. To learn more or get connected wherever you are in the world, visit advisoryboardcentre.com.